When we wake up in the morning, maybe the mind is not clear and then gradually open up and then start to think. And then you think so many things to do here, there, or what happened yesterday. Or maybe you're very calm and quiet and gradually waking up. Listen to the sound of bird, the sky, whatever. So depending upon how we wake up, we see the mind moving different direction, perhaps, if we realize that. But if we don't realize it, we are just jump into the mind functioning and be busy. Well, what to do today and what are the timing and the meeting and the report and whatever to take place. Or why do I have this problem still? How can I solve it? Or you may just remember the dream or the problem you have and feel like you're hitting the wall. So mind has such a function so that we get occupied or we can relax ourselves to be calm and quiet. But for people living in the modern world, the function of the mind seems to be taking so much space in our life. And it may not register us that such thinking is meaningful because what's the point of listening to this nonsense because I have so many things to do? But wait a minute. So I think, and more I think, after going through my life's journey and going through various experiences of meditation or Zen, whatever the situation is that I have gone through, that the mind is not everything. The world that we experience in mind is just a small piece of it, or has its constraint, and that's the subject I mentioned before. And one of the terms that I used was the two universes, that there is a universe in our mind which we think is everything, but it may be seen as ridiculous to think that's everything because while your mind is functioning, you may not realize, we may not realize that I can listen, I can hear, I can feel the breathing, I can sense the temperature in my feet or some vibration and the sense of different universe, so to speak, that is functioning. Whether the mind is functioning this way or that way, the other universe is functioning on its way. So if your mind is busy and you're occupied, you lose the touch with the, let's call it the reality of what's happening in the other universe, which is smell of the roses, the light in the sun, clouds moving, and the smile of the baby that you can connect to, whatever the situation is. So I think, and that's part of my book I wrote, that there's a brain and heart. Those are the two universes. And we use that expression, heart, listen to your heart. Or it could be not the heart, but listen to what the nature is speaking to us or feeling the nature's way. Or you might even use the word God. Something is happening that you don't know, but there's infinite potential out there. The wisdom or compassion that exists. No matter how small or big our ego or existence is, depending on how we use our mind, there's something else. So address that gap. You can say that, let's say the religion is found, or some wisdom or compassion is realized, so that we can bridge the gap between the limitation of what we got as individual to something else, the infinite potential. So that's the beginning of our awakening, if I or to use such word, or beginning of realization, there's limitation in mind. And we want to stretch our mind that we can do better than what we can in the mind, but within the mind. But when we hit the wall so many times and feel suffering that nothing can be done, then you resign and using the mind and to seek for different potential. Yet there's a saying which says, if you seek for it, you cannot find it, because you are seeking with your mind. And that's conflicting statement. You want to go beyond the mind, and to do that, you just can't use your mind. You accept the reality, being here and now, and stay calm and quiet if you can. And that state of calm and quiet mind is the point of opening, if you want to call that, or going deeper into your consciousness, because in your brain structure, if you use the mind in certain area and if it doesn't work well, it goes deeper to look for solution elsewhere, down deep to the root of your existence. That's one way to put it. To figure out and let the figuring out taking place on its own. Because we are a living being and there's ability beyond our mind that exists to make us to be alive. The mind cannot live on its own except for the help of whatever else is going on. So mind cannot be arrogant and reach out to something beyond the mind. And that's counterintuitive, or it's not possible to use the mind to do that. So that's the saying of, if you seek for it, the solution, or whatever the savior, or the getting out of the crisis or suffering, you just have to let go of your mind. How do you do that? That's the question. And you cannot use your mind to do it, so you stop, to say it simply, to stop to use the mind. And that's counterintuitive, because mind is made to go beyond whatever you can to figure out whatever you got in your mind. And now we're talking that you shouldn't use your mind. So it's very counterintuitive. And for that reason, we may not stop using the mind and therefore keep hitting the wall to the point of having us the despair, and even much worse. Some people may commit suicide. Well, I haven't done it, so I can't tell if it's meaningful or not. But there's other way to seek for without using the mind, and which is to not use the mind and let the situation to resolve it on its own. Again, counterintuitive. That is to go through the process of deeper into your consciousness. That's one expression. Or you can connect to the nature of what's happening so that you can relate to what the nature is doing. Because you are nature by itself, by yourself. So that's the opening. It's not just the opening, that's the reality of what's happening. Conceptually, mind can perhaps accept that mind is not everything. So that pursuit of what's outside of the mind become possibly an interest for you. And if you feel interested in doing, my suggestion is learn to stop using your mind. Whenever you feel delusion or difficulty or hitting the wall, missing something, and if you realize that you're missing something, then that's the moment that you can practice the idea of stop using the mind. One of the examples that I can share, because you may not believe it, what I'm saying, but just for the heck of it, I can just use one example, which is when you feel like, okay, I'm having a headache or I have difficulty passing through this puzzle or a problem, whenever you feel that, or you feel uneasy about the way the things are happening and mind is functioning and started to endless loop of nowhere to go kind of a activity. If you realize that, then you can practice this example, which is basically stop the mind by focusing on breathing, or just stop breathing even. Have silence. See if your mind can calm down. You can do it right now. Stop. And even stop breathing. For a while, and you may realize that there's something else. Possibly you may feel your muscle more relaxed. And when you restart your breathing, you can feel more about even appreciation of the fact that you can breathe. That's a life force coming into you to be alive instead of stop breathing. And when you stop breathing and focus on that little experience of being, your mind may become empty. And you start to play with this, so to speak, you may realize that there's some other force functioning within us beyond the mind capability. You don't have to stop breathing. You can do something else. You can be busy running up the stairs or climbing up the mountain or doing surfing or diving, so that the mind is less occupied to address the issues which is not addressable if the problem is beyond the reach of your mind to solve. Then getting into those activities can help you to rebalance that there's more of other dimension than you've got in your mind. So let's keep it simple. And let me end this video by suggesting that as much as I practice those and keep practicing, because the practice make it perfect. Repetition is mother of success, or the success or the skills in certain area. And you might want to explore this for the heck of it. And if you do, and if you want to make a little comment, please leave it with this video so I can listen to you and see what you may, or I may, or we may find out what this process may mean. If you start to find interest in these unknown potentials that we may have in us, please take a look at other videos, or again, make a little comment underneath to see what happens. Have a good day, good morning, and good life.